The movie begins with a man named Gaspard, snow roller skating his way on the streets of Paris. He arrives just in time as his father announces his act to perform on the stage of the Flauberger Road. Gaspard sings with the Barbarettes as his backup. Richard arrives and is warmly greeted by the staff, and he is a frequent visitor. The few attendees applaud the singers for their performance, and Richard leaves afterward, happily humming the song. As he leaves, he hears a melodious voice and is enchanted by it. He goes into the river, looking love-struck as he seeks the voice in the deep waters. Meanwhile, on the boat, Gaspard's father gives him his share of the money they earned that night. Gaspard jokes that it's as much as he saved in his piggy bank when he was younger. Gaspard's father reveals that he had another offer for the bar, as the business isn't doing well. But Gaspard prefers to sell something other than the bar, as he is attached to everything in it. He claims that it holds too many memories that he wants to keep. Gaspard leaves to go home and hears that melodious voice, but strangely it doesn't enchant him like the man before. Gaspard tries to enter his apartment quickly, but is greeted by his neighbor Rossi, watching him through the peephole. Rossi, a good friend of Gaspard's mother, also wants Gaspard to become happy because he has been sad and alone for a long time. Rossi encourages him to find a girlfriend since he's always alone. But his cat, Johnny Cash, is the only one waiting for him at home. His house is littered with different toys and trinkets he collected. Gaspard devotes most of his time to his mother's last memory, a book called Dreamers. Gaspard falls asleep next to Johnny Cash while a song by the Barbarettes plays. Later that night, an old man fishing by the river hears the magical tune again. Then he goes into the river, following the melodic voice in the deep waters. As Gaspard has breakfast with his cat, the next morning 2 men deliver the voice graph booth from the bar. He realizes his father is selling the place, so he sprints toward the bar on his skates. He argues with his father about his decision, saying his mother would have fought to keep the place, but his father has no choice, and Gaspard angrily leaves the place. As he wanders by the riverside, Gaspard sees a mermaid unconscious on the riverbank. At first, he believes the girl is wearing a costume, so he takes her in his arms and tries to hail a cab. The taxi drivers won't help him, thinking they are drunk. Then he stops a tricycle and trades the driver his vehicle for his roller skates. Meanwhile, at a hospital, Dr. Milena and Dr. Victor meet outside, and they kiss as she tells him she might be pregnant with his child. The two happily enjoy the moment as they dance, but they are interrupted when Milena gets a call from a patient's case, and she asks him to stay there as she won't be gone long. Moments later, Gaspard arrives and goes into the hospital to call for help, leaving the mermaid in the tricycle outside. But without a medical insurance card, they can't help her. At the same time, Victor approaches the tricycle and sees the unconscious mermaid. The mermaid wakes up and starts singing melodiously, and Victor becomes entranced by her. Suddenly, he feels a pain in his chest and decides to go inside the hospital. Gaspard returns to the tricycle, accidentally leaving his mother's book on the counter. As Gaspard drives away from the hospital, he unknowingly leaves behind the mermaid's blue blood and some scales from her tail. Victor's health rapidly deteriorates, and when Milena sees him, he tells her about the mermaid outside before falling unconscious. He is immediately taken to the emergency ward. Later, Gaspard arrives home with the mermaid on his shoulder, and Rossi sees this through her peephole. Gaspard brings her to the bathroom and puts her in the bathtub. He puts a shirt on her, and the mermaid wakes up and starts singing her tune. However, it does not affect Gaspard, so he goes to the kitchen to prepare something to eat. Afterward, Gaspard returns to the mermaid and treats her tail wound. She tells him her name is Lula, and he is stunned to discover she can speak. Lula explains that she will die if she doesn't return to the sea within 2 sunrises. Gaspard promises to take her to the sea once she has healed. That same night, Victor dies while singing the mermaid's melody, and Melina is unable to do anything to help. The autopsy reports on Victor show a significantly increased amount of nitrogen, and some gases resemble sea gases in his body. The following day, while Lula is sleeping on the water, she wakes up and is shocked to find Gaspard still alive. Meanwhile, Melina takes a pregnancy test and bursts into tears when she sees it's positive. Victor appears behind her, embracing them, but she soon realizes it is just her imagination. Lula tells Gaspard that men usually die when they hear her voice because they fall in love with her so much that their hearts explode. Gaspard doesn't take her seriously, claiming that his heart exploded several times long ago, so he can't love anymore. Nevertheless, Lula warns him that his heart will be forever broken this time. Gaspard doesn't listen to her and brings a small TV into the bathroom, playing a movie about a mermaid. At the hospital, Melina investigates the cause of Victor's death. She learns from the reception that a man left a strange book after leaving the hospital. Meanwhile, Gaspard goes out to retrieve his mother's book. Once outside, Rosie congratulates him for finally bringing a woman home, but he claims she's just afraid and leaves in a rush. Outside the hospital, Melina finds blue blood and scales on the road. Seconds later, Gaspard arrives on the tricycle. He enters the hospital and asks about this book, but the staff only asks for his health insurance card. Rosie enters Gaspard's apartment to meet Lula and mistakes her for Gaspard's girlfriend. Rosie thinks she's a singer, knowing she fits Gaspard's type. Rosie tells Lula about the legendary Foul Burger Bar. Her grandmother created the bar in the 1940s, and people who wanted to have fun and fall in love would meet there even during the war. Gaspard's mother died when he was very young, leaving him with his mother's book. Rosie returns to her apartment but forgets her cigarette. Out of curiosity, Lula tries to take a puff but throws it on the floor, causing a fire. Meanwhile, Melina is investigating the blue blood she found and discovers it's from a creature that must be from the deep sea. Later, her assistant gives her a newspaper article about a mermaid in Paris. Later, Gaspard receives a phone call informing him that his house is on fire, and he quickly drives home. Fortunately, the firefighters arrived earlier and extinguished the fire. However, one of them was enchanted by Lula's melody, losing his mind to its magic. Gaspard arrives at the apartment, and the fireman advises him not to smoke in the house, showing him the cigarette case. Gaspard goes to the bathroom, but needs help finding Lula in the tub. He eventually finds her under his bed, terrified. Gaspard doesn't get mad at her, knowing it must have been Rosie's cigarettes. Gaspard takes Lula into Rosie's tube to watch her while he returns to the apartment. He returns to Lula and she immediately apologizes. Gaspard decides to return her to the water. Before they part ways, he asks her what she wants to do before leaving. Lula requests some Parisian fish and asks him to sing her a song. Gaspard promises to get some fish, but first sings her a little song. He is impressed by her enchanting voice and proposes to make a record with her. Gaspard takes her to the voice-graph booth, and they record their first song. Enchanted by her, Gaspard tries to kiss her, but she pulls back. Meanwhile, the fireman is dying at the hospital and talks about Lula's enchanting voice. Melina realizes her boyfriend died the same way and tries to get information from the fireman. Melina is enraged and vows to find the mermaid and cook her for dinner. At the same time, Gaspard asks Lula to spend an evening at the bar, promising to take her back to the water at midnight. He wants to show her how human beings enjoy life, and she accepts. They get ready, and Rosie gets a dress for Lula. They happily drive to the bar and the tricycle. The party is full swing at the bar, and Gasper's father welcomes the two lovebirds, mistaking Lula for a disabled girl. Gasper's father brings out a heart-shaped piñata, and as Gasper hits it, rose petals come out, indicating that Lula has a good heart. Lula reveals to him that she's the only survivor of her kind, as a group of sailors killed her mother. Since then, Lula has been taking revenge by killing anyone who approaches her. She confesses that she has killed 43 sailors, but Gasper jokes about it, saying he has dated 43 different women. Later, Gasper's father plays their song and they dance romantically. Unbeknownst to them, Molina joins the party after unknowingly saying the password to the waitress with the help of Gasper's book. At that moment, Lula and Gasper leave to wander around the city. Gasper takes her to see the bright Eiffel Tower and slowly falls in love with her without realizing it. Afterward, he takes her to a public aquarium, where Lula swims with the fish and invites Gasper to join her. A few moments later, his heart aches as he falls in love with her. Lula tries to help him breathe, but he falls unconscious. The next day, Gasper is sad as he promised to let Lula go. When they reach the river, Gasper asks her to stay with him, promising to take her to all the world's oceans and always be near her, even if he needs to scuba dive. Lula is unsure because it's too risky. Gasper decides to make one last surprise for her before letting her go. He shows her a performance that his mother invented. The show ends, and Lula asks him to bring her fresh food. Gasper leaves to get it, and Rosie spots him leaving. Lula begins to cry, and her tears turn into pure pearls. Lula begs Rosie to take her away but doesn't understand why, as Gasper has never been so happy in the last few years. Lula explains that he would die if she stayed any longer. Gasper returns with the fish and flowers but sees Rosie's apartment door open. Realizing something has happened, he finds Melina and her assistant analyzing the bathtub inside his apartment bathroom. Gasper bursts out in anger and asks where Lula is. He falls unconscious from severe heartache. They take Gasper and Lula to the hospital. Lula's powers are now affecting Gasper. Lula wakes up and asks for Gasper, but Molina tells her he will die like all her other victims. Later, Rosie distracts Melina, waking Gasper up, and they pick up Lula to carry her outside. Melina realizes the deception and runs out of the hospital, but it is too late. As they have already left, Melina asks Rosie where they are going, saying that Gasper could die at any moment. Rosie claims that they are going to the river near the bar. Melina arrives at the river but has yet to receive a call from her assistant informing her of Gasper's location. During their escape, Lula reveals that she's in love with Gasper, but he doesn't respond as he tries to convince himself that he doesn't love her. As the sun rises, they soon arrive at the seashore and Gasper takes her to the water. The two kisses and Gasper finally let her go. Lula looks at him sorrowfully, knowing he will die, and swims away. Soon, Melina arrives and sees Gasper dying on the shore. She checks his pulse and sees Victor and Gasper asking her to save him. A few days later, Gasper receives a call from Melina's assistant, who returns Lula's purse to him. The movie ends as Gasper buys the Flower Burger bar and a boat with the Pearl to continue his life across the sea, hoping to find Lula again. Thank you for watching us. Please don't forget to subscribe for more movies like this.